Hello everyone, Namaste and Salam Alaikum people. Hi, this is Mariya Khan, your Master Teacher of Biology here at Vedantu. And today we are going to discuss yet another chapter from your ICSE Class 10, that is the nervous system. I know that you are very confused related to various parts of the brain, their function, its structure and other stuffs, right? So to seek conceptual clarity and to gain full marks in your examination, stay with me in this video right till the end, and without wasting any further time, let's quickly get started, right? So first of all, before we hit on the parts of the nervous system, let us understand why do we need a nervous system. First of all, to remember, think and reason out. Every day we come across so many things, so we need to remember. We need to think why a particular thing is in a way, and we need to find the reasons for that, reason out, right? And then we move, we talk, we walk, we do so many activities. So to control all the voluntary activities, the muscular activities, we need a nervous system. Besides that, there are so many things which happen in our surroundings. So in order to perceive information with the help of our sensory organs, still the information that is being brought in, that has to be processed, and that is again done with the help of nervous system. So to gather information about the surroundings, about the things which happen around us. And then there are so many involuntary organs present in our body, है ना? Heart. So the involuntary activities, to regulate the involuntary movements, we need a nervous system. So chalo, without wasting any further time, let's quickly begin with the nervous system. Guys, nervous system is an organ system present in our body. Now, every organ system is made up of numerous organs. So there are numerous organs present in the nervous system. Now, if I ask you which are the organs associated with nervous system, you will quickly say, ma'am, brain. Yes, of course. Spinal cord. Yes, of course. And the nerves arising from the brain and the spinal cord. Exactly. But bacha, these are the organs. Organs are made from the tissue, nervous tissue. And tissue is made up of cells. So the nervous tissue is made up of cells which are called as neurons. So neurons form the structural unit of the nervous system. Neurons form the functional unit of the nervous system. Neurons help in transmitting the messages from one part of the body to the another. So these are the neurons which actually help in the formation, in the functioning, in defining the structure of our nervous system. Now, each neuron has basically three parts, okay? First of all, it has the branch-like projections which gather the information from all possible directions. And these branches are what we call it as dendrites. Now, dendrites pass the information to the main central body, which is called as the cell body. Cell body is also known as cyton. Now, on the inner side of the cyton, there is large and prominent nucleus present, and hence the cell body or cyton is also called as the perikaryon. Then from the cell body arises a long process which we call it as axon. Now axon has numerous ends or branches which we call it as axon terminals. Okay, so I usually call this neuron in the Singham style as neuron. I call it as neuron. So it has branches which are called as dendrites. It has the main body, that is cell body. It has a long process which is axon, and the axon ends into the axon terminal. Besides that, now the axon of this neurons can be covered with a fatty layer which is called as a myelin sheath. Now in this particular GIF you can see that there is a myelin sheath. Okay, now this myelin sheath is discontinuous. So myelin sheath 1, myelin sheath 2, myelin sheath 3, myelin sheath 4. In between there are gaps. Now these gaps that you see, okay, these gaps that you see, they are called as nodes. Nodes of Ranvier. Okay, nodes of Ranvier. Ranvier nahi hai. Okay, now some neurons can have this myelin sheath, means they are myelinated. Okay, and some do not have this myelin sheath. So myelinated and non-myelinated neurons. Now, how these neurons transmit this information, you know? The information is picked up by the dendrites. Then it passes through the cyton, then to the axon, and finally it is released to the next neuron with the help of the axon terminal. Okay, So dendrites to cyton, cyton to axon, axon to axon terminal, and then it is then passed to the next neuron. So the information is being relayed from one neuron to another, from the second neuron to the next. Okay, so the transmission of this information, the signal, is what we call it as impulse. So transmission of the nerve impulse is always unidirectional, and when I say unidirectional, it always travels from the dendrites to the axon. Okay, now bacha, there are different type of neurons. Now neurons which carry the information from our sense organs or from the periphery of the body to the central nervous system are called as the sensory neurons. Neurons which carry information from the sense organs are called as sensory neurons. Okay. Now, the neurons which pass the information to the central nervous system are not the same which bring the information back to the muscles or glands. Okay. The information is brought by another set of neurons. Okay. Which bring the information, which deliver the information either to the muscles or to the glands. For example, if there is a mosquito sitting over here, okay, the message will be sent, na, "Eh, machhar aaya re." The mosquito has arrived. The mosquito is sitting on your hand. So this information is brought by the sensory neurons. Now, in the brain, the message will be processed. The information will be processed, right? So that processing of the information is being done by the association neurons. Association neurons are also called as the intermediate neurons, interneurons, also known as the relay neurons. They are called by different names. Why? I tell you. Now that the brain will take a call, कि we need to kill the mosquito. So the message will be sent to the muscles. Muscle dal मच्छर को, है ना? Muscles kill the mosquito. So guys, this information is being brought by the motor neurons. Okay, from sense organs to the CNS, sensory neurons, the processing and the passing of information from sensory neurons to the association neurons is done, sensory neurons to the motor neurons is done by the association neurons, which are present in the brain and the spinal cord. Then the decision, what next, that is being brought from the central nervous system to the muscles or to the glands by the motor neurons. Now we discussed an example ki how the muscles will act. When the information is brought, the muscles will contract or relax and bring about a movement. But what about glands? For example, someone gets a steamy, hot, cheese burst pizza right in front of my eyes. My mouth will start watering. If I see that my pet dog has been accidentally killed, tears will start rolling down my eyes. Tear glands, right? So the glands might get activated when the information is being passed. Okay, so yeah, three type of neurons: sensory neurons, which carry the information from sense organs to the CNS; association neurons, which pass the information from the sense organs, from the sensory neurons to the motor neurons; and then the motor neurons, which carry the information from the CNS to the effector organ, which can be a muscle or a gland. Okay, I hope that's clear. Guys, if you're enjoying this session, if you're finding the session to be useful, informative, like, share, subscribe and post me a yo. Okay, chalo. Proceeding further, as I told you that the neurons may have a myelin sheath covered on the axon, which are called as the myelinated neurons, and the neurons which don't have a myelin sheath, they are called as unmyelinated or non-myelinated neurons. Okay. Now, if we talk about the nervous system is broadly divided into two parts: CNS and PNS, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Okay. First, we'll target on the central nervous system, and after some point of time, we'll discuss about the peripheral nervous system. But to give you a broad brief idea, the central nervous system, which is located centrally in your body. So centrally in our body, there's a brain, and the spinal cord that runs below the brain, right? So brain and the spinal cord, and of course the brain stem that connects the brain to the spinal cord. Okay. So basically what we talk is the brain and the spinal cord, and of course the part that connects the brain and the spinal cord, that's the brain stem. Okay. Now students, the peripheral nervous system, periphery means the other parts of the body. So the nerves arising from the brain and the nerves arising from the spinal cord, they move towards the periphery of your body, your trunk, your arms, your limbs, right? So these nerves form they link the central nervous system to the other parts of the body. That's the peripheral nervous system. So CNS and PNS. So let's first target the CNS. As I mentioned, central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. Now brain is very delicate. It can be cut even with a butter knife. Okay. It is approximately 1350 grams in weight. Okay. And it comprises of the 2% of our entire body weight. It requires 25% of the oxygen that is present in our body. Okay. And it's a VVIP organ, right? And it's so delicate that it needs to be protected. And hence the brain is protected by a bony cage or covering, which is called as the skull or the cranium. Okay. Then even the spinal cord, that is the assistant of the brain, the BFF of the brain, even that has to be protected. So the spinal cord is being protected with the help of a set of bones, which we call it as vertebral column. Okay. So, yep, the central nervous system is completely protected with skull and the vertebral column. Okay. Now guys, brain is very soft and delicate, whereas the cranium is very hard. Now just imagine that I take a jelly in a wooden box and I shake it harder. The jelly will crumble into pieces. In the same manner, the brain, which is placed inside the bony skull, can actually crumble into pieces. It can get damaged, and hence to protect that, there is an additional covering of 3 layers, which we call it as meninges. Okay. So there are three layers of meninges. The outermost stuff layer, which is called as a dura mater. Okay. Dura means tough, hard. Then the intermediate one is the arachnoid layer. Arachnoid means spider-like. So it's a web-like layer which connects the other two parts. Okay. Then the innermost is very soft and delicate, and it's highly vascular in nature, which is called as the pia mater. So 3 layers of meninges. Okay. Now there are gaps in between the meninges. Okay. And even there are cavities within the brain. So the cavities within the brain are what we call it as the ventricles. And then in human beings, in our body, the spinal cord is hollow, and inside the spinal cord there is a cavity. That cavity is called as the central canal. Okay. So the ventricles of the brain and the central canal of the spinal cord is filled with a fluid. That fluid is called as CSF. That's the cerebrospinal fluid. Now what is the function of the cerebrospinal fluid? 1. It acts as a shock absorbing fluid. It protects the brain from any kind of mechanical shock or injury. Suppose someone hits the brain harder, it will help to absorb the mechanical shock. Okay. Second, it helps in exchange of material, nutrients, waste products. Okay. It helps in exchange of material. So yes, CSF is a protective fluid. It helps in shock absorption. It helps in exchange of gases, waste and nutrients. So that's the job of the CSF. Now, if we talk about brain, brain is primarily divided into 3 parts: forebrain, midbrain and the hindbrain. Okay. Now let's consider this as the midbrain. Okay. This as the midbrain. On top of that, there is a cap-like other part of the brain, which sits on the top of the midbrain. That's the forebrain. Now if I wear a cap, it will cover this much part of my brain. So that will be the forebrain. Okay. Then if this much is covered, this much is still remaining uncovered, right? So this much part of the brain, is called as the hindbrain. So forebrain, hindbrain, and on the inner part is the midbrain. Okay. Very, very easy. Now let's first target the forebrain. Okay. Now forebrain is the largest part of the brain. Okay. And it comprises of approximately 85% of the brain, and hence it's also called as the large brain. And it's a seat for intelligence, memory, conscious, willpower, voluntary action. So it's like very, very important. Okay. Now forebrain is primarily divided into three parts. The upper part is called as the cerebrum. The upper part is called as the cerebrum. Then the cerebrum wraps itself around a stage-like structure which is called as the thalamus. So if I show it to you over here, okay, with some other color maybe. Yep. So this part, okay, is what we call it as thalamus. Okay. Now from the base of the thalamus, okay, from the base of the thalamus, what we see is the hypothalamus. Okay. So from here we see the hypothalamus. Okay. So the thalamus and the hypothalamus collectively form the diencephalon. So if we talk about forebrain, forebrain is made up of two parts. A, that is cerebrum. Okay, A, that is cerebrum, and B, that is diencephalon. And diencephalon is made up of two parts, the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Now cerebrum is actually divided into two parts, right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. So right cerebral hemisphere and the left cerebral hemisphere. So as you can see the label, cerebral hemispheres. Okay. Now this cerebrum is responsible for intelligence, memory, and hence in the examination when you try to recollect an answer, you hit here, na, arey, kya answer tha. So it's responsible for intelligence, it's responsible for memory, it's responsible for reasoning. If you want to talk, if you want to walk, if you want to jump, if you want to dance, all the voluntary actions, they are being controlled by the cerebrum. Okay. Your willpower, that is possible because of the cerebrum. Okay. It stores information over here, and hence it's also called as the subconscious or even the unconscious mind. So when a person is being hypnotized, he is able to recollect the incidences from so many past years, right? So that's because of the cerebrum. Now the diencephalon, which is made up of the stage-like structure, that's thalamus, and a small structure that hangs from the thalamus, that's the hypothalamus. Now thalamus is very important because it is a coordinating center for sensory and motor signaling. Okay, it regulates senses, all senses almost, except for smell and muscular and glandular activity. Smell, not controlled by thalamus. The glandular activities, they are not controlled by it. The muscular activities, they are not controlled by it. Okay. So who controls the muscular activity and all? We'll discuss about them after a short while. Okay. But hypothalamus, guys, it's the master switchboard of our body. It controls the pituitary gland, right? So this is the pituitary gland. So hypothalamus, it controls the pituitary gland. It is responsible for your emotions. It is responsible for an individual sexual behavior. It's important because it regulates your body temperature. Okay, so that's all about the forebrain. Now, as I told you that the forebrain, okay, it has the two regions, cerebrum and the diencephalon. So cerebrum is divided into two parts, right cerebral hemisphere and the left cerebral hemisphere. Now these two regions, they pass the information from one region. I mean, these two parts of the cerebrum interact with each other, or the information is passed between them with the help of tough fibers. Okay, can you see the tough fibers? Okay, can you see this one? See this one? So that's called as the corpus callosum. So corpus callosum is a band of fibers which connect the right cerebral hemisphere to the left cerebral hemisphere. Okay, and then if we cut the brain, we get to see two parts. The outer part, which is called as the cortex, and the inner region, which is called as the medulla. So outer cortex, inner medulla, outer cortex, inner medulla. Now outer part is gray in color, whereas the inner part is white in color. So we call it as gray matter and white matter. But what's the matter? I tell you that the cell bodies of a neuron, okay, cell bodies of a neuron, they lie in the gray matter. So the cell bodies give a grayish appearance, whereas the white matter, okay, is because of the axons. Okay, now if we see the cerebrum properly, we see so many convolutions, है ना? So the infolds are called as the sulci, singular sulcus, and the grooves that we see, they are called as the gyri, singular gyrus. So gyri and sulci are the convolutions present in the brain. So these convolutions help to increase the surface area of the brain so as to accommodate more and more neurons, and that is responsible for the intelligence. So more the number of neurons, greater is the intelligence. Okay, chalo. Now let us talk about the midbrain. Midbrain is very small. It is a small stalked part, okay, lying just below the hypothalamus. Lying just below the thalamus, okay. Now it controls reflexes, which involves eyes and ears. It helps in the processing of auditory and visual responses. So for example, eyes are here, and the ears. So the information is taken right back to the midbrain. Okay, so midbrain helps in reflexes related to eyes and ears. Okay, reflexes. Now, if you ask me what are reflexes, we'll soon discuss about them. Okay, very soon. Now, let us talk about the hindbrain. The hindbrain, that is the last part of the brain. Now, hindbrain is again divided into three parts: pons, medulla, and cerebellum. Now, it's very simple. I usually call it as the bird. Okay, let me draw so that it will be clear to you. So see, this is the head, okay, of a bird. So this I say is the pons. The body of the bird is what we call it as the medulla, okay, and the wings are what we call it as the cerebellum. So pons, medulla, and the cerebellum. Now cerebellum helps in the coordination of the muscular activity. It helps in maintaining the body balance, and that's the reason why when a person consumes alcohol, it affects the cerebellum, and a person fails to maintain a body balance and hence is unable to walk in a straight line. The coordination of the bodily activities is being lost, and hence the person thinks something else and blabbers something else. The person wants to talk something in a straight line, like pons carries impulses from one hemisphere to the another, but the person will say hemisphere 1 pons blah 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 blah, something like completely disoriented, है ना? So that's because the cerebellum is being affected. So cerebellum coordinates the voluntary activities and helps in maintaining the body balance. Okay, now let's talk about the pons. So pons helps in passing the information from one hemisphere of the cerebellum to another part of the cerebellum. Apart from that, it also helps to coordinate the muscular movement on both sides of the body. Muscular movements on both sides of the body. Pons, very important. And then comes the medulla oblongata. Guys, we have so many internal organs which are involuntary in nature. Heart, kidneys, the alimentary canal, right? So heart keeps on beating, the kidneys keep on filtering the blood, the alimentary canal keeps on digesting the food. We don't need to instruct these organs, they work on their own, right? So now all these activities of the involuntary organs, they are being regulated or they are being controlled by the medulla oblongata. So there are certain nerves which we call it as autonomic nerves. So all these autonomic nerves come and form a triangular region, pyramidal region over here, which we call it as the medulla. So medulla is like the power cord of our body. Suppose if I pull off the power cord of my house, all my electrical appliances will stop functioning. Similarly, if the medulla oblongata is being disconnected, if it is being cut, okay, the person dies an immediate death, and it's considered to be the death with minimal pain, है ना? So hanged till death. Why people are given the punishment of hanged till death? Why not they're shot dead, or why not any other punishment? It's because of this scientific reason. The medulla oblongata is the power cord, so it controls all the involuntary internal organs like heartbeat, breathing, etc. Okay, then guys, now that we are done with the brain and its parts, let's move ahead with the secretary of the brain, that is the spinal cord. Okay, so medulla oblongata terminates into the spinal cord. So this particular spinal cord, if we see a cross section of the spine, okay, this is the anterior view, that is when we see from the front region. Okay, so on the inner side we get to see the gray matter. Okay, so if we see the gray matter, it means it's clear that there are cell bodies or cyton lying over here, है ना? And the outer part is the white matter. That is very clear that the axons lie in this region. So the axons which carry the messages to and fro from the brain are present in the white matter, whereas the cell bodies of the interneurons and the motor neurons lie in the gray matter. Okay, so we can see horn-like structures, है ना? So the horn lying on the back side is what we call it as the dorsal horn, and the horn lying on the front side or the anterior side is what we call it as the ventral horn. Now the spinal nerves arise from the spine through the dorsal and the ventral horns. Okay, ठीक है, and the spinal nerves are mixed nerves. What are they? We'll talk about all of them one by one. Okay, chalo, let's proceed further. Acha, here at the center is the central canal, which is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. Guys, if you're finding this session to be informative, like, share, subscribe, post me a yo. Okay, great. Now let us talk about the functions of the spinal cord. Now students, spinal cord is like the secretary of the brain. So many a times the functions which do not require involvement of the brain, कि भाई इतने छोटे से काम के लिए why to disturb the brain? So in those cases where the responses need to be very quick, that time the spinal cord comes into the action. So it controls the reflexes below the neck. Okay, it sends the information from our sensory organs or from the skin or muscles to the brain. Okay, besides that, conducts motor responses. When the brain is telling कि muscles kill the mosquito, है ना? So this impulse from the CNS is being carried by the spinal cord to the muscles or the glands, okay, present in the trunks and the limbs. ठीक है? चलो. Now guys, that the central nervous system is done, that the brain and the spinal cord is being done. Let us move on to the peripheral nervous system. Now, as we know that the peripheral nervous system comprises of the nerves arising from the brain and the spinal cord, but that's not all. Peripheral nervous system is further divided into two parts, the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. So first let's talk about the somatic. Guys, soma means body. So soma means body. So the nerves sending information to various parts of the body, especially to the skeletal muscles, form the somatic nervous system. So let's talk about that first, and then we'll discuss about the autonomic nervous system. Now the somatic nervous system are divided into two parts. One, nerves arising from the brain, which we call it as the cranial nerves. We have 12 pair of cranial nerves, and the nerves arising from the spinal cord, they are called as the spinal nerves. So we have the 31 pair of spinal nerves. So cranial nerves and the spinal nerves collectively form the Somatic nerves. Now let us discuss something more about them in detail. So somatic nerves, as I said, they are 12 pairs, and they are sensory, motor and mixed in nature. So example of sensory: optic nerve, helps in perceiving senses, right? Motor are eyeballs can move. It's because of the eye muscles. Motor nerves bring the message. And then mix, which go to and fro from the face and the tongue. Okay, cranial nerves. So from the cranium they come to the face. Cranial nerves. Now the spinal nerves. We have 31 pair of the spinal nerves. So I remember it as 8, 12, 5, 5, 1. 8, 12, 5, 5, 1. So we have 8 pairs of cervical nerves. We have 12 pairs of the thoracic nerves that is present in the chest region. Then in the waist region, we have 5 pair of the lumbar nerves. Then in the below that, we have the sacral nerves, again 5 pair, and 1 pair in the coccygeal part. Coccyx, that's the tailbone. Okay, so see, it's given 12, 8, 12, 5, 5, 1. Okay, 8 in the cervical region, thoracic region, lumbar region, sacral region and coccygeal region. Okay, and spinal nerves are always mixed nerves. Okay, they are a blend of both sensory as well as motor nerves. Okay, cool. Now let us proceed further. Now that we have covered the somatic nervous system, let us now talk about the autonomic nervous system. Now autonomic nervous system definitely made up of autonomic nerves, right? So autonomic nerves किससे बना होगा भाई? Of course, it will consist of the pair of nerves along with the ganglia, है ना, where the cell bodies lie. So yeah, chain of nerves and ganglia, and that's the autonomic nerves. So that forms the autonomic nervous system, and autonomic nervous system is further divided into 2 parts: sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now the sympathetic nervous system prepares your body for the fight or flight situation, where your body is trapped in some dangerous situation, okay, unfavorable situation. And the parasympathetic nervous system helps to bring back calmness, normalcy to your body. It helps in rest or digest. Okay, so let's talk about the sympathetic nervous system. So as I said, sympathetic nervous system, these nerves arise from below the medulla to the as you can see, the lumbar region, है ना? And then guys, between the head and neck lie the parasympathetic nerves, and then finally below the lumbar region. Okay, from there we see that there are parasympathetic nerves as well. So when we get scared, our pupils dilate. It's because of the sympathetic nervous system. And when we find कि अरे कुछ नहीं था, मैं तो बेवजह डर गई थी, so the pupils constrict back. So rest, ease, calm, parasympathetic nervous system. When we are stuck in some dangerous situation, for example, some crazy dog is following us, okay, chasing us, that time the energy has to be passed on to all the muscles. That time the digestive activity in our stomach will be inhibited. But once we don't see the dog anywhere, then again the digestive activity will again begin. Okay, so yeah, these are ekdam oppositely functioning parts, sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, as I said, many a times the spinal cord does not bother to involve the brain. Many times the actions need to be very quick, the responses need to be very quick. So that time the actions which are immediate and involuntary in nature, such actions are called as reflex actions, also known as the reflexes. Now you understood what I meant by that. So any instant, immediate, involuntary responses towards the stimuli are referred as reflex actions. Now if you ask me examples, when any dust particle enters your eye, water starts flushing down, tears starts flushing down, that's a reflex action. When someone pricks a needle or something pricks, you immediately remove your hand or your palm or your foot, anything, है ना? Reflex action. When you touch a hot object, immediately you pull your hand back, reflex action. When you enter into a dark room, to allow more light to enter in your eye, the pupils dilate, right? So that's a reflex action. है ना? You sweat during a hot weather. Right now I'm sweating. So yeah, that's again a reflex action. So now reflexes are again categorized into two types: natural reflexes and conditioned reflexes. So natural reflexes are some inborn reflexes. You don't need to learn. Okay, they are being actually basically passed from your parents, and you are able to perform them right since your birth, like coughing, sneezing. So when anything enters your respiratory tract, you begin to cough. When anything enters inside your nose and it's irritating you, you sneeze it, right? So coughing and sneezing, natural. When something hits on your knee, you accidentally kick back, right? So the knee jerk, which initiates the kicking response, that's a natural reflex, right? There are so many examples of natural reflexes, but then there are conditioned reflexes as well. For example, whenever a teacher enters in a classroom, you stand up as a respect, and that happens voluntarily. That happens involuntarily. So that's a conditional reflex. Then second, tying shoelaces. You don't even look at your feet, you simply tie, है ना? पता नहीं चलता है कौन सा कैसे बांध दिया. But yes, you are able to tie the shoelaces. You're able to play the musical instruments. You're able to type on the keyboard. It's all conditioned reflex. When you're riding a bicycle and someone crosses the road, all of a sudden you hit the brakes urgently. Conditioned reflex. Okay, so the difference between natural and conditioned is: natural is inborn, inherited reactions, inherited from your parents. Okay, and it requires a stimulus. Without that, it won't happen. है ना? And it can occur without brain cortex. See, your brain develops, है ना? Slowly and gradually. But then natural reflexes don't require thinking. Okay, and most of these are for your life. You're not going to forget them. Conditioned reflexes. Conditioned reflexes are only after a result of life experience. For example, if I love pizza, okay, and if I'm able to smell steaming hot pizza, my mouth will start watering. But if in my life I have never tasted a pizza, I won't salivate. As simple as that. So अगर मैंने मेरी जिंदगी में experience किया है, if I have ever experienced it before, then only I'll be able to acquire this kind of reflex. So conditioned reflex, acquired reflex. It depends upon the experiences that an individual has actually gone through. Okay, so it's brought by a condition. Okay, different from the initial stimulus. It needs brain cortex to store the experiences. The information can be stored temporarily and it may disappear in the later parts of your life as well. Okay, ठीक है? May or may not. Now let us talk about the nervous pathway in a reflex. Okay, so as I told you that a spinal nerve is a mix of both sensory nerve, okay, sensory neurons which form the afferent nerve, and the motor neurons which form the efferent nerve. So afferent take the signals to the spinal cord, efferent take the signals from the spinal cord, right? And then in the spine there are interneurons, or also what we call it as the intermediate neurons, है ना? So they help in transmitting the information to and fro from the brain. So once the reflex action is being performed, the information is then being sent to the brain. For example, I touched accidentally a hot object. I removed my hand. And then I realized, oh, there was a cup of coffee, steaming hot cup of coffee, and I accidentally touched my finger on the cup, or maybe I dipped my finger into the coffee. So ये जो information है, this information was sent to the brain once I removed my hand. So that is being done with the help of this interneurons. They help in sending the messages across. Okay, so yeah, the sensory neurons, they bring the information from the receptors present in the sense organ, and the motor neurons, they deliver the information to the receptor organ, to the effector organ, that is the muscles or the glands. Okay, so if we try to uh, if we try to like break up the path of the reflex action, we get r, sa, me. Receptor, sensory, association, motor, and effector. Okay, so receptor organ, the sense organs which receive the stimuli or the impulses. Okay, and the sensory neurons which carry the information to the interneurons. Interneurons, they process the information and generate a response. This response is carried by the motor neurons and it's delivered to the effector organ, and effector organ can be a muscle or a gland. Okay, I hope that the reflex arc is also being understood by all of you. Now, one more important thing. Here we are at the beginning of the month of February. You all are 10th graders. Your exams might be at the end of the March or maybe in April. Okay, let's be prepared for the worst. So if I consider that we have 2 months, you can't spend your entire 2 months in preparation for the chapters. You need 1 month for revision. So if I talk about studying all the chapters of your core subjects, let us focus on maths and science, okay, which includes physics, chem, and bio. You at least require 1 month. Okay, so I'll request all of you that beta, this 1 month is very crucial, and it's up to you whether you want to utilize this opportunity to the best of your capacity or maybe waste it. Term 1 is already done. You were lucky enough to have the easiest possible MCQ paper. But term 2, it's going to be subjective. And you have to buckle up and you have to study hard. Hai na? Now here I have one idea. Okay, in this 1 month, let's assume that you study for 4 hours. Okay, 4 hours. Now, if you study for 30 days, so 3 4s are 12. So 120 hours you may study. Okay, how? If you want to study efficiently, effectively, the way you have seen my session, we have all the sessions on our platform, on the Vedantu's platform, taught in a way where you will get complete understanding of the core concepts. And if you utilize this 120 hours in the best possible manner, you can utilize the remaining 1 month for complete revision. Rather, here at Vedantu, we ensure that all your chapters are being covered. We provide you with study material assignments. We provide you with practice tests. We provide you with detailed analysis of your report card key, which are the areas where you are scoring well, which are the areas where you need improvement. Okay, detailed analysis. You get n number of quizzes. You get assignments which you can solve and you can ace in your boards. What else do you need, guys? What else do you need? So enroll now. How can you enroll? Chalo. Before I could show you how can you enroll, let me show you. There are some other features as well. Okay. For example, this is my dashboard, as you can see. If I go to the past sessions, uh, can you see there are so many past sessions? So you can simply click on the get notes and download the session notes in the form of a PDF. So no need to jot down the running notes. Many a times you may commit mistake while noting it down, right? So when you get the handwritten notes provided by the master teacher, कोई tension ही नहीं होता है. In most of our sessions, your doubts are being resolved completely, है ना? तो टेंशन की कोई बात ही नहीं है. When you have quizzes, when you have notes, when you have amazing master teacher, when you have doubt solving assistance in the class provided by the master teacher, at times there's a class teacher as well. Okay, and you can watch the session replays n number of times. Jitne baar dekhna hai, you can even play the quizzes while watching replays. Okay, you can directly jump onto the quiz slides. See, I'm jumping directly on the quiz slides. So you jump on the quiz slides and you get the information. Okay, And if I scroll it further down, okay, further down, let me hide myself. You can see total doubts are 0, total doubts all 0. So basically in my session at least I ensure कि भाई मेरे सारे बच्चों के doubts जो है वो solve हो जाएंगे. Okay, and now finally let's talk about how do you actually enroll with Vedantu. So the link has been given in the description box, which has also been pinned in the comment section. So this is one of my YouTube videos. Okay, so if I go and I click on the link which has been pinned in the comment section, I am diverted to this particular page. Okay, so here I get two options. Here is Grade 10 CBSE 2022, but you all are ICSE kids, right? So I'll change it to ICSE, Grade 10 ICSE full course. Now you see the fun. We have two options, either Pro Lite subscription or Pro Classic. I'll say go for Pro Lite. You get all the basic features, live classes for math science, test series assignments, notes, personalized report cards, doubt solving in the class. Okay. Now, if you think you till your board examinations you want to study with Vedantu only, you have the entire course for 8775 only. But I feel that this 1 month, if you studied wholeheartedly, it's more than enough. And for an 1 month subscription, you have to pay just 1170 only. You will say, ma'am, 15 दिन लिखा है. Yes, I know, beta. But when you apply my coupon code, that is MAKPRO, Mac Pro, you get additional 15-day subscription free of cost, complimentary. So guys, try our 15 days package, okay? And you save money. But besides saving money, you get to learn from the experts, and when you learn from the experts, you actually become a pro, है ना? So enjoy the goodness at Vedantu, and I won't say much. I'll simply say कि बेटा apply my coupon code, that is Mac Pro, to gain additional 10% discount, okay? And 1 month subscription, 15 days additional, 15 plus 15, 30 days you get. So what are you waiting for, guys? And I hope you found this session to be useful. If yes, like, share, subscribe, post me or you. The link to subscribe to enroll is given in the description box. Do enroll, and let's meet in the next session. Till then, Allah Hafiz, Milo Wapis, and keep watching Vedantu. Bye-bye. Take care.